This is Captain Ross. This is our Upgrade OUPV to Masters 100 tons Shipment, Discharge, and Manning section. Shipment and Discharge. So this section discusses shipment and discharge and manning for inspected vessels, vessels of a specific size or route. These regulations are found in 46 CFR 14.101 to 14.407. and provide the means for establishing the crew complement necessary for the safe operation of vessels. 46 CFR 14.201, voyages upon which shipping articles are required, states that before proceeding either upon a foreign, intercoastal, or coastwise voyage with a merchant mariner, each master must execute signed shipping articles. So let's go over what these articles are. Shipping articles are legal documents for the crew and ship owner defining each of them's rights and responsibilities. Key elements: voyage details. Shipping articles describe the type of voyage, the duration of the voyage, and the destination. Crew information: it lists the names, positions, and wages of each crew member. Engagement terms: specifies when crew members are to be on board and start work. Conduct regulations: it outlines onboard behavior rules, fines, and penalties for misconduct. For the wage information, it details wage amounts, including any advances that were given by the master to the crew. And provision scale describes the provisions provided to the crew, food and those kind of things. So why do we have shipping articles? They're a legal contract that create a formal agreement between the ship's master and crew, outlining their rights and responsibilities. They act as legal record of the voyage and crew, serving important documentation purposes. They provide protection for the crew by clarifying employment terms for crew members, ensuring legal protection, and they make sure that the voyage and the master and the crew are in compliance with regulations. Many nations mandate the signing of shipping articles before a voyage to adhere to maritime laws. So a little bit of historical context. Here's a sample I found of an early form. Initially, shipping articles were informal but evolved with advances in seafaring and legal systems. By the 18th century, written shipping articles became the norm, later required by many nations. Privateers and pirates. In certain historical instances, shipping articles were significant in privateering and piracy, outlining unique agreements and conduct codes. So basically, they've had these agreements. If you can imagine leaving on a ship as a crew with just a handshake agreement with the master, once he's got you out to sea, he could potentially make you work much longer than he agreed to initially, hold back money, not pay you, not drop you off when he was supposed to, basically just keep you on board against your will. So not saying that would happen in modern times, but this prevents that potential. So when are they required specifically for U.S. vessels? So if you're 100 gross tons or more on a foreign voyage, which is any voyage from a port in the United States to any foreign port other than a port in Canada, Mexico, or the West Indies, or 75 or greater tons on a voyage between a port of the United States on the Atlantic Ocean and a port of the United States on the Pacific coast, or you're 50 tons or greater on a voyage between a port in one state and a port in another state other than an adjoining state. So if I left North Carolina on a voyage and we were going to Florida, I would have to have shipping articles with my crew. If I'm in New Jersey and I'm taking some cargo on a smaller boat over to New York, I don't have to, because those two states are adjoining states, so you wouldn't need the shipping articles for that. So this is when you need them. 100 tons or more on a foreign voyage, 75 tons or greater on a voyage between a port on the Atlantic coast of the United States and Pacific coast of the United States, 50 tons or greater on a voyage between one state in the U.S. and another non-adjoining state. So here's some examples of voyages that don't require shipping articles. So pleasure yacht, a yacht. You don't have to have shipping articles. Fishing or whaling, a vessel aboard which the merchant mariners are by custom or agreement entitled to participate in the profits or results of a cruise or voyage. A vessel employed exclusively in trade on the navigable rivers of the United States. A ferry or a tug used in ferrying if the vessel is employed exclusively in trade on the Great Lakes, other lakes, bays, sounds, bayous, canals, or harbors. If you have a question as a master of a commercial vessel on whether or not you need to have shipping articles with your crew, I would definitely consult the CFRs that we cited earlier. They're in your textbook also. And if you can't answer the question that way, I would contact the local Coast Guard to ask who you should contact about finding out exactly if you need those shipping articles or not. So a couple of things as far as the content of these shipping orders or shipping articles. They must identify the nature of the voyage and specify at least the name, license, capacity of service, time due on board to begin work, name and address of next of kin, and wages due to each merchant mariner. For coastwise, that's for foreign and intercoastal shipping articles. Coastwise, articles must specify at least the matter identified in paragraph 1A of this section, which I just read, except that they must not specify the wages due to the mariner. So basically, all the same information is required for coastwise, except you don't have to specify the wages to the mariner. Here's some forms that you're going to use for these shipping articles. Here at the top right is a U.S. Coast Guard Mariner's Discharge Form, and it's a primary document used for proof of sea service, which is essential for providing evidence of sea service to apply for upgrade of merchant mariner credentials. So if you are the master of a commercial vessel and you have crew, this is the form that you're going to use to identify the days at sea they have. When they go to apply for their license, they have record of their days. The U.S. Coast Guard Small Vessel Sea Service Form is a primary document used for proof of sea service for vessels less than 200 tons. So you can also use this 719S, which is the same document most of you are going to use to apply for your license when you get done with this course. So now we're going to talk about manning. And manning is basically when you have an inspected vessel and you have your certificate of inspection, the Coast Guard is going to come on and determine the minimum manning requirements of your vessel. And it's going to depend on the size of your vessel, the number of passengers, where your vessel's voyages are. You know, if it's coastwise, if it's all inside of a bay, if you're taking boats from New York to Florida, long distance voyages, those kind of things. So the regulations apply to all vessels that it must adhere to the manning requirements outlined in U.S. navigation and shipping laws. This includes some uninspected vessels. These laws stipulate that vessels cannot be operated unless specific manning criteria are fulfilled. These include a minimum number of officers and crew, as well as qualifications related to licenses, MMC endorsements, citizenship, and employment conditions. It is the duty of the vessel's master or person in charge to ensure compliance with these requirements. So for us, 100 ton and less, if you're on an inspected vessel, your COI, Certificate of Inspection, is going to outline the manning requirements for your vessel. You want to make sure you follow those exactly as far as numbers of people, the licenses that they are required to hold, and any other employment conditions outlined in that COI. So remember, the COI is issued by the Officer in Charge Marine Inspection Office, and it specifies the minimum complement of officers and crew necessary for the safe operation of that vessel. In emergency situations, fire, flooding, etc., for the size and type of vessel, passenger, cargo, etc., for the proposed routes, ocean, coastwise, etc., the type and amount of cargo carried. So they might have you have more crew if you're carrying hazardous cargo than non-hazardous. And then this is just a photo here to your right of a certificate of inspection. So that covers shipment, discharge, and manning.